York's classic rock. Q1043.
Ken Dashow from Q1043. We're in the studios and we're doing Facebook Live. And this is Breakfast with the Beatles. And this is an icon, an idol of mine, somebody I've wanted to meet my entire life since I started buying every record she ever released. What an honor to have Petula Clark in the studio with us. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for asking me. I'm delighted to be here. I came in from Montreal last night after making a French-Canadian record, which was great fun but very hard work. And suddenly I'm back in New York, and it's great.
So you sung in so many different languages. You've sung in, how many hits did you have in French language? So many.
Oh, well, yes, I have a totally different French repertoire. Serge Gainsbourg wrote for me and etc. And I did record some of the English hits in French, but the really big hits for me in France were French songs.
And did the American songs, did Downtown and all the songs that we love, did those sort of connect around the world in different languages?
Well, they connected because, they're great songs.
They're
but
great
they connected, for instance, I recorded it in French, Downtown in French, and it was difficult because, downtown, the meaning of it is centre-ville, and it just doesn't sound right.
Scan.
Centre-ville doesn't work, So they found another phrase which was dans le temps, which has a totally different meaning. And in the end, the French preferred to buy it in English. So there are certain songs that just don't work in certain languages. But Downtown was a huge hit in Italian, but it was called Ciao Ciao, Ciao Ciao, and in Germany, which it was called Downtown in Germany.
Petula Clark is my guest with a new album. This is the coolest thing in the world, Living for Today, coming out on BMG. It's coming out November 3rd. And on it, you're singing a song called Blackbird.
Yes.
There's so much about growing up hearing your voice and the Beatles that are it's woven into the fabric of my DNA. I didn't enjoy the songs. It's every record we bought. If you were a music nerd, everybody was. We saved all our money just to buy music. That's where our best friends. Or you'd agree. You buy Don't Sleep in the Subway. I'll buy the new Beatles single, and you would share, and that's how we all listened to each other.
All right.
What was your first awareness of the Beatles? I'm always fascinated by contemporaries. How did you first hear them or know of them?
Funnily enough, I was living in Paris at the time, because I married a Frenchman and found myself living in Paris. I first heard the Beatles in Paris, and they had performed in a theatre called the Olympia as sort of, they weren't they weren't the stars of the show.
Right.
So and when I remember hearing them on the French radio and thinking, wow, they're great, So that's the first time I heard the Beatles. But I was doing all my recording in London. Most French people were recording in London because it was so much better at that time. The musicians were better,
Really? Better than, really?
Well, Jimmy Page was on all my records.
Yes. I don't know if people know that. Jimmy Page was playing guitar. He's a studio session guy. Yeah. Jimmy played guitar from Petula Clark on all those hits and so many others.
Yeah, he always reminds me of it every time he sees me. Yes, so, the whole British invasion was going on, but I was slightly apart from it because I wasn't actually in England, although I was doing all my recordings there. So I knew what was going on in England, of course, but I wasn't too much part of it because I was already a married lady, so I wasn't allowed to join in with all the fun and games going on.
All the riffraff. But, every musician that I know, and John Lodge has been up here from the Moody Blues just recently, and everyone, Graham Nash has been here, and everyone talks about Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool as being, the country bumpkins of the world, and that London being the center of the arts universe, and that said, we would come to London, and the laughs and the smirks, especially just even going to the studio, we felt it with every engineer, with every look that we got. Fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say it, yes. there was the accents, of course. If you talk like that, you come from Manchester or something, you're looked on as sort of,
Right.
all that kind of thing. There was a kind of snobism anyway. So the BBC, everybody had to speak BBC language, all that kind of thing. That all went, and that was one of the great things about the 60s. All of those rules were broken, and about time too.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell the folks about your growing up, about where you grew up and how you grew up.
Well, I'm suburban. I was born just outside London. I say Epsom because most people know something about Epsom, but in fact I was born in a place called Ewell, which nobody's heard of. So suburban. My father was English, my mother was Welsh. Now the Welsh are very musical people. Tom Jones is from Wales, obviously, and great poets, Dylan Thomas, they're
Yes.
from Wales. So I spent a lot of my childhood in Wales while all the bombing was going on in London. So I grew up in this wonderful, musical, very beautiful part of the world, and that had a big effect on me. Music was always in me.
It seems like John Lodge had just mentioned this, that I said so much of the music of the 60s was about escape. Everything else in the 50s were various versions of I Love You and Let's Have and so much as we get through the 60s, it's escape musically with a dream, with an image of it, of Itchy-Coo Park, or John Lennon writing, picture yourself on a boat on a river, tangerine trees and marmalade skies. And your song, I Know a Place, just that one line, a cellar full of noise. And that one lyric, that one word that you sang just echoed in my head. And that sort of drove me into finding about these cellars full of noises, these bomb shelters that are turned into clubs, like the Cavern Club.
Absolutely.
And all that. Did you ever go to those clubs? Did you ever see what was going on?
I sang at the Cavern, yes.
You
yes,
did?
In Liverpool, yeah, sure. Yes. And you can't sort of blame all that on drugs, the opening your imagination, but you're absolutely right. Songs were about love, Moon and June and all that kind of thing through the 50s and seemed to me to be in black and white. And then suddenly colour happened and we were given permission to sing about other things and to think in another way. Let's face it, the 60s wasn't just about, a musical revolution. There was a huge revolution going on. So it changed our way of thinking.
And the hits that you had, to me, echoed all of it. Head downtown, not up to High Street. It's not Harrods. Go downtown. It's a sign of the times. If you don't know another word from that song, it's a sign of the times. You would never have written that song in 1958. It would make no sense. There's no point of reference to it. As I said, don't sleep in the subway, which, by the way, the front page of yesterday's New York newspaper, there's a giant battle between New York's governor and the mayor about people sleeping in the subway. And here you're coming up the next day to sing. I'm like, well, you should join the fray. You should lend your voice to this one way or another.
Indeed.
Petula Clark agrees with the governor. Don't sleep in the subway. She made it very clear. Many...
Well, I didn't write those songs.
No.
I can't take any credit for that. They were written by Tony Hatch, who was just coming up with these great lyrics, great tunes too. A great song is what is a great song?
A great song's a great song.
Yes, yeah. It's usually the music and the lyric. Frankly, for me anyway, it has to have everything.
It's funny how you can't define it. You can explain it. People have written 1,000 pages of the Beatles and their structure of songwriting. They never analyzed any of that. It's just they were just songsmiths. A great song's a great song. Paul could just knock them out. It was just in him. It's not something he studied. And there were people with beautiful voices. And listen, they opened for Helen Shapiro on that first tour. But your voice stood out. We heard your voice and went, that's it. That's the sound there was of what we knew growing up here. We heard Lulu from To Sir With Love. We heard some beautiful things, but your voice, for some reason, was part of the story that we always heard of, like, that's why I wanted to go to London. I wanted to see all the things that you and the Beatles and everybody else was singing about.
Mm-hmm. So you went to London.
Oh, as soon as it graduated high school and everybody was getting cars and things, my friends scraped together our money because the first thing we had to do was go to London, and loved every second of it.
Well, it's still pretty great. London is still pretty great.
Oh, I love going there for Christmas for the Halls to visit friends, and they live in St. John's Wood, by the way, like just about 60 feet down the road from Abbey Road. And as my friend Ralph would say, you would think, now, the whole of the Western world would have had their photographs snapped on the zebra crossing, but you'd be wrong because they never stop coming.
That's true. That's true. Well, I live on the other side of the park in Chelsea. The King's Road was pretty great too.
Right. Did you record at Abbey Road?
I have recorded in Abbey Road, yes, but not in those days.
Right.
I was recording in a studio called Pi, a wonderful, huge studio which was pulled down recently, and I don't think Abbey Road will ever be pulled down. It's historic.
That zebra crossing, I think, is the number 1 and number 2 attraction in London after Buckingham Palace. Yes. Petula Clark is my guest here, Q1043, with a new album, Living for Today, title song While You See a Chance, and Blackbird. For you to finally sing Blackbird, I got to sneak and got to hear it. It's beautiful. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I'm glad I did it. I did hesitate.
Really?
Yes, because, a lot of people have recorded it, and of course Paul's recording is so gorgeous.
But other people aren't named Petula Clark.
Well, yeah. Well,
no, don't poo-poo that. That really counts.
Okay.
It's important.
No, but, I didn't want to mess it up. And,
right.
It's quite a complicated little song.
Everything about them, it seems so simple. Even the simple songs, and then you pull it apart. I have a little band, and we try to pull apart the arrangements and just the drum fills and things. You go, there's so much going on.
Yes, that's true. Well, the production was often quite complicated, but in fact, Blackbird doesn't have a lot of production. It's just the way it's... Oh, I'm sorry, that's me.
That's all right. We can get that.
Can I take that?
Yeah, no, we'll just wait a minute.
I'm so sorry about that. Now I've got to find it. Oh.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's my son.
Tell him we said hi. Tell him he's on the radio in New York.
Call him back.
Okay. You're allowed. So we were talking about Blackbird. Out of all the songs you could have picked, like here's the Beatles catalog, what was there about that one?
There was something sort of fresh about it. The producer said, well, let's do a Beatles song. Because I sung a lot of Beatles songs over the years.
Yeah.
And we thought Long Winding Road. Oh, yeah, well, yes, why not? And then John, the producer, came up with Blackbird, and I said, I have to have another listen to this, And he put Paul's record on, which is so perfect. And I said, that's a bit tricky for me. It's actually quite complicated. But the simplicity of the production is what makes it so special. It's just guitar and that's about it, really. And I really had to be talked into it, I confess. But as soon as I started singing it, I knew, yes, I want to do this. And I want to do this well. And it wasn't too difficult in the end.
Because once you embraced it and put your heart and soul, are there any of the hits that you had that you didn't want to sing, that you didn't like, that you had to be talked into? Really?
Well, I didn't want My Love to go out. We recorded that in L.A., the Wrecking Crew.
Right. Brilliant. Amazing.
Yes, they were one. I did a lot of work with them. They were lovely. And we recorded 3 songs. Tony Hatch came over and he had 3 songs and we recorded these. And My Love was one of them. And I didn't like it at all. I thought it was just... And Joe Smith was the big guy then. Big. He's quite small, actually. And I'm quite small. So I was able to get hold of his lapels. Because I had to leave. And the decision was his, which one was going out. And I said to him, Joe, please, promise me, don't put out My Love. And he said, trust me, baby.
That's been said in L.A. before.
Trust me, baby?
Yes, once or twice.
Yeah. not just in LA. And the rest is history. It was number one.
Fantastic. Petula Clark is my guest. The new album, Living for Today, with her cover of Blackbird, which is spectacular, on BMG November 3rd. And we get to see you in New York at BB King's, the Boxing Day after Christmas on the
Boxing
26th. Yeah, I live in London in my head. I really do.
Yeah.
Why haven't you toured more? Why haven't you come to the States
Well,
more?
I've never done a concert tour, ever. I've done concerts here and there, but never an actual tour. This is the first time.
Really?
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because I've been busy doing other things, I suppose. I've been
was
busy
even as-
touring Australia and
Yeah.
England and,
But yet there was never a drive, even in the young days, let's tour America. The Beatles, the Stones, everybody's touring America.
I would have done it. I think maybe my agent, manager, or whoever just didn't think it was a good idea, I suppose. I don't know.
That's just dumb.
Maybe.
That's dumb, because we missed
Let's
you.
hope this isn't dumb.
No, this is going to be wonderful. You don't want to miss Petula Clark, BB King's, the 26th. If you're in South Orange, she'll be at SOPAC on Saturday the 23rd. And again, the new album, Living for Today. Petula Clark, I can't thank you enough. I've got one last question.
Yes.
You must have, first time you met any of the Beatles, first time, Paul, who was first?
Paul, and the last one I saw was Paul on a railway station,
Tell me about the first time you saw Paul.
Victoria Station. First time I saw, we must have been doing a show. They were on a show. It wasn't the Ed Sullivan. I think I met the Stones on the Ed Sullivan show, but I met the Stones many times, many more times than the Beatles. And I never worked with them as a group. I've met them individually.
Right.
And Ringo I adore. I saw him recently in concert. He's just wonderful.
You told me you just saw Billy Joel.
Yes.
What'd you think?
I thought it was great. Great. I mean, he still sings beautiful, and of course he plays piano like a demon. And I love his band. I mean, wow.
Yes, Mark Rivera is a dear friend who comes up here a lot, the sax player.
Oh, really?
And he said they turn the garden into a living room. They make it like a cabaret show.
Isn't
Let's
that
just have fun.
amazing?
That's the magic.
Yeah. Yes.
That's Paul McCartney was just here. Same thing. 8 shows in our area, and all felt like we're in the studio, like a living room, just playing for us.
It's a great thing, isn't that? Communication.
And that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
I can't wait to see you on stage. Petula Clark, thank you so much for coming up.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.